Normal Redditors that dated a celebrity. What was it like? My wife briefly dated Louis C.K. back in 2012. She says it seems kind of awful to be famous. Anytime they went out to eat or were in public, they were just constantly interrupted or stared at. He came to her day party at some little bowling alley in Brooklyn though and was pretty cool. The story that always sticks with me is that one day he went out and bought a $150,000 watch because he felt sad. Salma Hayek is my dad's childhood friend. They grew up together in Coatzacoalcos, Veracruz. They never dated but they have remained acquaintances if not friends. I never believed him they were friends until one day we ran into her in the airport and she invited us for dinner. She is a really nice person and a lot of fun to hang out with. Not a romantic date in the least. But I had dinner once at a Japanese restaurant in a group setting, with Leonardo DiCaprio while he was in Louisiana filming Django Unchained. He wanted to know what college was like and was asking us all about our lives. He also let me try his udon. It was my first ever Instagram post. He really is such a nice guy in the limelight and in real life it felt like we were hanging out with our friend. My uncle hooked me up to see Foreigner in 1981, including 2 backstage passes. I took a girl I really liked but she ended up meeting Mick Jones and disappearing with him into a dressing room. I didn't see her again that night. So I guess you could say I got ducked by Mick Jones. Edit. Her side of the story was that she went with him into another room where people were drinking and smoking, and he ignored her after that. She said she stayed there 20 minutes, then left and couldn't find me, and I had ditched her. So just to be clear, I'm not accusing Mick of doing anything inappropriate. That's her story and her mother believed it enough to call my mother to complain about it. So yeah, that's what must have happened. Hooked up with a chick who was in a soap opera a few times. Didn't know it at the time but recognized her when I was at my grandmother's and she had her show playing. Hey grandma, that's the girl I ducked the other day. Not me, but my aunt dated Matthew McConaughey before he was famous. He ended up getting invited to her wedding to my normal uncle, and proceeded to pass out drunk in the back of my family's car. He refused to leave, and now my dad refuses to watch his movies. My aunt went on a date with Jimmy Buffett. She said he picked her up, stopped at a gas station, bought a jar of pickles and then drove to the beach. They ate pickles and he took her home. Little did she know he went on many dates like this, slowly eating each of the components of a cheeseburger on each subsequent date. My friend's sister-in-law was out jogging when some other random dude came up and jogged with her and talked with her about random stuff like the movie being filmed nearby at the time for a bit. After a bit of that, he said, "Oh, by the way, I hope you like the movie." They were filming The Force Awakens and she only realized later that it was Harrison Ford. I had an English teacher that went on a date with Mark Hamill just after filming Star Wars in the 70s. She said he was a nice guy and was very humble. He said he was a small-time actor and said he had just finished a new movie that he thought might be successful. They only went out once and she never heard from him again. Saw him in Star Wars a few months later and had her mind blown. My friend's aunt went on a blind date with Gerard Butler. Circa 300. The movie. Not the year. There was a big miscommunication. Because he was looking for a hookup and she's a kindly French-Canadian woman in her 50s. But they both had a laugh about it and enjoyed supper with each other. She said he was very kind. And very muscular. So what the duck happened? Did he clap cheeks or nah? I matched with Chloe Moretz on Bumble once but then I said I liked her in Dark Shadows and she ghosted. Sad pensive face. Edit. Probably too late for this, but about 15 years ago, when the show The Simple Life with Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie was popular, I made out with Paris Hilton at a nightclub in Baltimore. Essentially, they were filming them doing all sorts of random jobs around the country and staying with local families, all for the culture clash laughs. One of those families ended up being my friend and her family. Being a close friend and a well-known admirer of Paris at the time. I was invited over and got to hang with her and Nicole Richie a good amount while they were in town. Both of them were super sweet, and a lot smarter than they played for the camera. Paris was a great kisser, and this story is always a hit with my friends. A few months later, her phone was hacked and nudes were leaked. My number was in her phone book and I got spammed with prank calls from 4chan. Or something. I imagine it was a lot worse for anyone who was actually famous. Anyhow, basically lost total contact after that. But still a fun story. John Krasinski liked my Venmo donation to his charity, so it's basically like we're dating. A friend of mine banged Matthew McConaughey. She's a costumer in Hollywood and was hanging out in the bar at Chateau Marmont when Matt comes up to her and says, "How about you and me walk 30 feet and get naked?" Her initial response was lol no, but by the end of the night her friends convinced her she had to do it. This was peak 2000s Matt when he was ripped and constantly shirtless. So she went up to his room at the hotel and they banged. Apparently it was sweaty, mostly from behind, and he preferred to watch them, mostly him, in the mirror. Same girl also dated McGee from NCIS, but apparently he was a total sweetheart. Years ago at a hotel bar party I saw Alicia Cuthbert sent a bottle of vodka to her table. Upon learning it was me who sent it, she motioned me over to her table, promptly asked me if I was a drug dealer, told me I was dressed like a bum, and sent me back to my table with my bottle of vodka. That was my date with Alicia. I guess we just weren't meant to be. Edit. To answer some of your questions, I don't think she was looking for drugs. She said something like, "Besides dealing drugs, what are you doing here?" I was like 20 at the time, and a bit overconfident. This was roughly 13 years ago I think. I am not creepy, haha. I saw a hot celebrity, was a little drunk, and took a swing. A lot of "she's a bitch" comments. I wouldn't call her a bitch for turning down the advances of some random dude that is 4 years younger than her. I also later found out that she was dating an NHL hockey player at the time. I never stood a chance. My mum lived in Key West in the early mid-80s. She dated Sting for a while. He had a really nice yacht and they went on a sailing trip, during which he realized my mum is psycho. She is. He ended it right after. Sometimes to duck with my dad I'll start singing Roxanne or Message in a Bottle. My mum dated Keanu Reeves back in high school. She broke up with him because he was too focused on his band with his friends at the time. If only. I have a friend whose great-great-grandma was in a relationship with Joseph Stalin. Edit. If her family is still around, the breakup couldn't have been too bad. Edit. Not me, but my cousin dumped Elvis Stojko, figure skater, before he became a thing to date the guy who became her husband. She always found it weird to see him in the Olympics. Charlize Theron flirted with me when I was an extra in her first movie. She was a nobody and had a really small role. Then her makeup or assistant told me I was lucky for that. I was shy and backed away because it was odd having a girl hit so hard on me. Not dated for any of these stories, but semi-related. My mum went to a party with Janis Joplin. She said she was wild, funny, but crude, and smelled like she hadn't showered or brushed her teeth in weeks. Janis Joplin died not long after. I went to university in Westchester, PA. Seeing Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, and crew was a relatively common sight. The first time I saw them was the same night I got the call from my parents telling me that my family dog was put down. Very old, very sick. My friends took me out drinking and we ran into Bam and crew. Bam asked why I was down, and when I told him, he bought my drinks for the rest of the night. I went out bar hopping with them a few times after that. They were nice, but wild. Could never quite prepare myself for a night out with them. Ryan was as kind as could be and absolutely hilarious. My cousin was hit on by Shaq at a festival. When she pointed out that he was married, he allegedly said, "I'm Muslim. I'm allowed to have many wives." Damn, I'm so late and I know this will get buried, but when my mom's aunt died they were going through her stuff and found a picture of her sitting on JFK's lap. No one knew anything about it. My wife's aunt ducked David Hasselhoff 30 odd years ago. She worked in the television industry. A family friend's mum went clubbing with Lady Gaga. Afterwards, Gaga asked if she knew who she was. Friend's mum had no idea. My college roommate's cousin, I believe, went on a date, maybe multiple dates, with Hammer before he blew up in the social network, and apparently he forgot all about the date. They went on, and when he tried to introduce himself to her at another encounter, she said something along the lines of, "I know. We used to date. Pretty sure the guy is married now." My old English teacher is good friends with Serj Tankian, lead singer of System of a Down, and she always talked about having coffee with him, and I'm still jealous to this day. Not me, but my uncle dated the singer Pink in high school for a little while. They went to Central Bucks in Pennsylvania. Pretty neat fun fact, but it always feels a little awkward when someone brings it up at gatherings because he is happily married now. This is also why I don't have any stories to share, lol. Apparently she was super chill and down to earth. My uncle was the type of kid to create napalm in his backyard and set the neighbor's pool on fire, etc. So I've always imagined she probably acted similar at the time. But I could be way wrong. My mum had a dinner date with George Clooney in the 90s. She didn't really say much apart from the fact that he's an interesting and charismatic guy, but she honestly didn't think he was going to blow up. This thread has taught me that as an aunt I really need to up my dating game so my nibblings will have better stories. A friend of my aunt's dated Shel Silverstein for a bit. Apparently he was a bit of a DCK. Have it on very good authority he was creep. Not said authority, but friend of mine has an unpublished poem of his. He was in a coffee shop writing like crazy on a legal pad. Crumpled the paper and threw it away. She grabbed it out of the trash. I held hands with Isla Fisher in grade 3. We left for school holidays, and when we came back she didn't like me anymore. That little monster kid from the first Mad Max lived next door to us as kids and constantly chased my sister around trying to kiss her. Edit. Spelling, and apparently he is in the second movie. My mother dated Judd Nelson back when he was relevant. She said he was kind of a prick once she got to know him better, but his parents were cool. Weirdly, my family now lives like 10 minutes from his parents' place in Maine. My aunt kissed Gordon Lightfoot in a bathroom at one of his concerts. I'm guessing there was probably more, but she didn't elaborate. She probably went down like the Edmund Fitzgerald. Edit. Thanks for the awards. Glad I could give so many a chuckle. Back when they were still a small bar band, my mother had drinks with the Cult. The lead singer had told her he was in a band, but she didn't believe him. So when they played Wildflower that night, he dedicated the song to her. One of my dad's close friends is Jim Carrey's first wife. Apparently he turned into kind of a DCK when he got famous. Shock 8NG. I know. I remember a decade or so ago when their grown kids band was trying to make a living with their music. She really want Jim to help them get bookings and stuff, and he was all they need to make it on their own. Then he got a new girlfriend who told him to help his kid out, and he did. First wife is still salty about that. A teacher of mine dated Rainn Wilson for 3 months. She said he was a funny and kind man. They also went to Mexico together, and when I asked what they did she replied, "What happens in Mexico?" I briefly dated Jamie Lynn Spears. Well, kinda. We spoke a lot on MySpace and she made me number 7 on her top 8. Cheers. Not a date, per se, but I had a nice quiet dinner with Samantha Fox in her hotel room in Toronto in the 80s. She was in town for a show and I was attached to her security detail. She asked me to eat with her because she didn't want to go out but hated eating alone. Sweet girl. Kinda sad too. Lonely. Edit. Well, that blew up. I don't remember a lot of details, what we ate etc. But I do remember we talked about her growing up in the UK and being still amazed at her success. I do remember she said she looked forward to seeing the world on tour, but apparently the world all looked like the same hotel room. She never got to just explore and play tourist. Friend of mine dated Brad Pitt in college. 2 or 3 dates if I remember correctly. I went to a different school, but remember meeting him when I went to visit my friend. One of my friend's dad's friends is a plumber and got called to do a job for Doug Pitt, Brad's brother. Well, Brad just happened to be visiting when plumber guy showed up. Plumber guy introduced himself to Doug, who is kind of a hometown celebrity, philanthropist, etc. Then looked at Brad, and jokingly said, "Ah, you must be Doug's brother." Brad didn't find that too funny. I once shared a bong with Claire Danes. Does that count? She coughed her lungs out. My friend dated Dax Shepard in college. She said he's super nice and genuinely funny. Just a good-hearted man. She said he didn't really express much interest in comedy or acting at the time, or ever really, so she was surprised that's what he ended up doing. R. Kelly asked me out on a date in the mid-90s. I declined because I had a boyfriend at the time. Besides. So you were, what, 18 years old? My uncle is a ski instructor in Northern California and had a coffee date with P. My sweet Nana, who typically only has nice things to say about anyone, was once set up on a date with Chuck Norris through a friend of her cousin. My siblings and I found out shortly after the wide circulation of Chuck Norris facts started, so we couldn't wait to get the details. She told us, he was a lovely man, but honestly a bit of a bore. I know a girl whose aunt would hook up with Johnny Depp in the early 90s when he was in town. He was pretty reserved, could be very romantic, and enjoyed writing letters. Apparently he also enjoys dressing up in women's clothing during sex. That doesn't surprise me at all tbh. I dated a girl who went on to be a sort of alternative parent star. We were both 17/18, and she was really nice and we got on really well, but she was almost too obsessed with sex even then. The second time we hung out, she gave me a blowjob in a graveyard. Like, it really couldn't get more emo. And yes, it really was that good. We broke up and kind of lost contact, and then I found out she was doing PRN. Think she only did it for a little while, but it was certainly interesting when I found out. I dated Flux Pavilion for 7 years. It was great. So we got married in January. I enjoy my own company, so the touring isn't really a problem. Edit. I posted that and then felt guilty about such a low effort post. So, it's nice to share my life with a person so creatively fulfilled. I love hearing whatever he's worked on that day when he gets home. I get to tag along to cool places. And it's sweet to see how much people care about his music. I generally don't try to explain what he does when I meet new people, because they either won't get it and don't care, or they do get it, care too much, and then only want to talk to me about his music. Largely though, just a normal happy marriage. He judges me when I listen to Radio 1. I judge him when his phone isn't on silent. His job isn't much of a factor in our daily life. I married Josh, not Flux Pavilion. Really. He's an excellent husband for myriad reasons. And his musical talent is only one of those. Old neighbor of mine had a coworker, US Air Marshal, who sat next to Tom Cruise on a plane. Knew exactly who he was. Didn't acknowledge him. After the flight, TC thanks Air Marshal for not making a big deal of sitting next to him and says, "Let me sign something for you." Air Marshal asks, "Who the hell are you?" Apparently Joe Strummer, the guy from The Clash, pulled my mum on stage to protect her. He kissed her on the cheek and said, "It's okay, love. You're fine now." Edit. My mum went on a few dates with Phil Spector when she was young. She wasn't that into him, so she ended up blowing him off. I guess he remained persistent for a bit. She still considers it her missed opportunity, but I'm pretty certain she dodged a major bullet. I have a family friend who dated Daniel Radcliffe. I was 7 at the time they dated, and a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't remember much aside from the fact that he was a really sweet guy. On my 8th birthday, my family friend told Daniel it was my birthday and he texted me a personal happy birthday message despite never having met me. Absolutely made it the best birthday ever. Edit. You are all asking why I had a phone at 8 years old. To clarify, Daniel texted from my family friend's phone to my mom's phone. And sadly, I don't still have the message, as my mom's messages were deleted when she got a new phone. I called Miley Cyrus a ducking bitch when we were like 12 years old. So, I mean, no, I've never dated a celebrity. Is a one-night fling considered dating these days? According to most groupies I know, it is. Dated a famous player on the Giants. Ego was huge. Eggplant was huge. Date was intimidating. SX was disappointing. He paid for my Uber 2 hours away lol. Edit. Football. My friend's grandma got fingered by one of the Beatles at a house party in Liverpool before they were big. Lol, what grandma tells stories of being fingered? Still funny though. My 4th grade English teacher dated the lead singer of Smash Mouth for a few months. My friend made out with Taylor Swift when they were both in high school. Once they kissed in the basement of some house and everyone used to say he kissed her downstairs. I couldn't believe it when my high school friend met Nathan Kress. Now they are married with a kid. Cool and nice guy. Life of the party. My boyfriend dated a girl who was on The Bachelor. Went on a few dates before she went on the show but mostly dated her after. He said her whole life revolved around getting famous and he was just not down for that. Never dated, but Melissa Joan Hart gave me her phone number when we both were 17. How do normal people even get the chance to date celebrities? Because I kinda have a celebrity crush on someone who I believe is in my league. Meet them casually. Don't be a ducking goon. Ask them out. Friend of mine dated Jake Paul for a while. No, Jake Paul, a DCK. I went on a few dates with a drummer in a, at the time, small local band. It ended in a really awkward drunk hookup and him moving to a bigger city. Fast forward and they've blown up a bit. They got referenced on a big TV show about 8 years ago. Them as a person, not the band, and are now on the music at my work. So I'm forced to listen to them every day. It's an awful song as well. Closest I ever got to a date was when I went for a pee down an alley in Antibes, France, as I was staying out there for work. Peeing on this wall and then about 6 Jeet things all turn up and Leonardo DiCaprio jumps out. George Clooney and his wife, Robert De Niro, 3 Kardashians and Kendall Jenner all got out. Turned out the one place I decided to pee on was the 2016 Cannes Film Festival after party restaurant. I remember seeing all of them walk past me and look at me like scum. But to me it was like holy duck, what is going on? This is the best day of my life.